The alien, Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
That word alien is the one LeBron James keeps coming back to whenever the conversation turns to Victor Wembanyama. When footage surfaced of LeBron turning to his teammates and dropping a line aimed straight at the 7'4" Frenchman, the clip spread in hours. What he said next is where this gets complicated. The night it started. The story everyone is arguing about right now did not begin in a press conference or a podcast studio. It began on a basketball court on December 15, 2023, when the Los Angeles Lakers walked into a building to play the San Antonio Spurs, and a 41-year-old came face-to-face with a teenager the entire sport had been waiting on. LeBron James was, at that point, entering the back third of a career that had already rewritten the record books. Victor Wembanyama was a rookie. He had been the #1 pick months earlier, and he carried the kind of expectation that usually crushes the people it lands on. The matchup had been circled on calendars for weeks because of what it represented. The player who had defined 2 decades of the league standing across from the player a lot of people had already decided would define the next 2. The game itself went San Antonio's way. The Spurs beat a short-handed Lakers team 129-115, and Wembanyama showed the flashes that had made him a global story before he had played a single NBA minute. There were blocks, there was length that turned ordinary drives into problems. There was the sense, even in a rookie performance, that the floor was tilting in a direction nobody had seen before. But the play that lived on, the one that got clipped and reposted and turned into a thumbnail, belonged to LeBron, with Wembanyama in front of him. All of that length and all of that reach in his face, LeBron rose into a step-back 3 and let it go. That call, one for the generations, is exactly how the broadcast framed it in real time, and it is exactly how the moment was received. The veteran, 20 years into his run, had just hit a contested shot over the most physically imposing rookie the league had produced in a generation. It was not an insult, it was not a taunt, it was a man making a point about who he still was. And that is the first thing worth holding on to here, because the title of this video promises a confrontation that turned ugly. And the place to start measuring that promise is the very first time these two stood across from each other. What happened that night was not ugly. It was competitive in the way the sport is supposed to be competitive. LeBron got his, Wembanyama got his. The building reacted to both. Wembanyama was asked afterward what it felt like, finally, to share the floor with the player he had grown up studying. His answer did not sound like a man who had just been disrespected.
I would have thought I would feel some type of way, but honestly, on the court, I was just trying to win, you know.
He had expected to feel something, some weight of the occasion, and instead he said he was just trying to win. That is the answer of a competitor, not a victim. And it set the tone for everything that has come since, because from that first night, the relationship between these two has been built on a foundation that does not match the words "got ugly" at all. The numbers across their meetings tell the same story. The two have faced each other roughly 5 times in the regular season, and LeBron holds a 3-2 edge in those games. Inside that record are physical battles at the rim, switches that forced each man to adjust, and stretches where Wembanyama statistically took over. LeBron has answered length with stepbacks and floaters and playmaking, leaning on the parts of his game that do not require him to win a vertical contest against a player who can touch the top of the backboard. Wembanyama has answered with blocks and rebounds and the kind of scoring nights that make people forget how young he is. None of it produced a flagrant foul between them. None of it produced an ejection. There was contact, elbows, contested shots, the ordinary violence of professional basketball, but there was no incident. The closest thing to friction in those early meetings was the friction every great matchup generates, the kind that makes you lean forward rather than wince. So if the first night was clean and the games that followed were clean, then the ugly everyone is chasing has to live somewhere else. It has to live in something that happened later, in a setting where the guard comes down and the microphones are closer than the players realize. To find that, we need to leave the regular season behind and walk into the one game on the calendar where everybody is supposed to be having fun, and listen to what LeBron said when he thought it was just between him and his teammates. The clip that set the internet on fire. This is the clip. This is the moment the entire "things got ugly" narrative is built on top of. And once you understand what was actually happening on that floor, the whole framing starts to look very different. The 2026 All-Star Game was not the lazy defense optional exhibition the event had become a reputation for. The league had moved to a new format, a 3-team, 4-game tournament featuring USA Stars, USA Stripes, and a world team. And the change did something the All-Star Game had not managed in years. It made the players care. There was a trophy on the line at the end of a short, sharp tournament, and the competitive edge that the format was designed to bring back showed up almost immediately. The player who set that tone was Victor Wembanyama. He came out for Team World and played from the opening tip like the result mattered to him personally. He got the first points of the game on a dunk, and he did not let up. The intensity he brought was not the relaxed pace everyone expected from an all-star floor. It was the same energy he brought to a playoff possession in March. He was guarding the three-point line in an exhibition like a championship depended on it. That intensity is the context for what LeBron said. James was on team stripes. And at one point, after a foul involving Wembanyama, he was caught by the broadcast microphone turning to his teammates and saying, in effect, a censored version of Forget Wemby. On the page stripped of everything around it that reads like an attack. That is exactly why the clip travels the way it does, and exactly why thumbnails build entire stories around it. But the line was not delivered as an attack. It was delivered with a shrug and a grin, the way a veteran complains about a young player who will not stop scoring on him. It was the basketball equivalent of "this kid is killing us." The announcers caught it and laughed. Nobody on the floor reacted as though a line had been crossed. And the reason that interpretation holds up is the scoreboard. Wembanyama was not getting clowned in that moment. He was the reason LeBron was frustrated in the first place. He finished the showcase with 33 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 blocks in limited minutes, and he did it in a setting where most stars are coasting. The exasperation in LeBron's voice was the exasperation of a man who could not stop what was happening to him. That is not contempt. That is respect dressed up as a curse word. The Athletic, covering the game from the building, framed the night not as a confrontation but as a coronation, describing how Wembanyama furthered his case as the NBA's next face by playing a glorified exhibition like it owed him something. There was a moment late in his team's opening game where Wembanyama threw his hands in the air in genuine frustration after his teammates surrendered an open three. In an all-star game, that is the level of investment we are talking about. The man was annoyed about losing a game that, historically, nobody is supposed to care about losing. So when you put LeBron's mic'd up line back into the environment it actually came from, the ugly confrontation dissolves into something almost the opposite. A veteran got cooked by a 22-year-old in a setting where getting cooked does not even count, and he said something salty about it, and everyone within earshot understood it for what it was. The clip is real. The framing around the clip is where the distortion lives. The fan reaction split along predictable lines. Some people saw a star disrespecting the next generation. Most people saw two competitors enjoying themselves. The mic'd up footage, the same footage the league itself published as a highlight, captured a Wembanyama who was loose and locked in at the same time, and a LeBron who was treating him like a worthy problem rather than a target. But a single salty sentence in an exhibition is thin evidence for a feud. If there were any real edge between these two, it would show up somewhere with more weight than an all-star microphone. It would show up in the way LeBron talks about Wembanyama, when he has time, space, and a full studio to say whatever he actually thinks. So to figure out whether there's anything underneath that clip, we need to listen to LeBron when nobody fouled anybody, when there was no scoreboard and no frustration, just a microphone and a chance to say exactly what he believes about Victor Wembanyama. What LeBron actually says when the cameras slow down. The fastest way to test whether a confrontation is real is to listen to what someone says about you when they have no reason to perform. LeBron James hosts a podcast called Mind the Game, a show built entirely around breaking down basketball with the seriousness of a film session. It is the place he goes to say what he actually thinks, and what he actually thinks about Victor Wembanyama could not be further from a man holding a grudge. The first thing to understand is the vocabulary LeBron reaches for. He does not call Wembanyama talented. He does not call him promising. He calls him an alien, and in the language of LeBron James, there is no higher word. When the term came up on the podcast attached directly to Wembanyama, LeBron did not hesitate.
The alien Victor Wembanyama.
That is doing a lot of work. It is a man signing off on the highest compliment in his vocabulary, agreeing without qualification that this player belongs in a category by himself. This is not a new opinion he developed to smooth over a bad clip. LeBron has been calling Wembanyama an alien since before the kid was even drafted, when he watched the prospect play and reached for the most extreme word he could find to describe what he was seeing. The word predates any rivalry. It is the foundation of how LeBron has understood this player from the start. When he goes deeper, the praise gets more specific and more technical, which is the kind of praise that is hard to fake. On a longer segment of the podcast, LeBron broke down exactly what makes Wembanyama different, and he did not talk about height. He talked about coordination.
His ability to catch the ball with his back towards the basket or half of his body and be able to find the rim before he even lands.
That is a film study observation, the kind a coach makes about a player he admires. LeBron is describing a level of body control that should not exist in a frame that size. And then he closed the thought with the part that matters most.
That is coordination that we've never seen before.
Never seen before. From a man who has shared a league with everyone for 2 decades. Never seen before is not a throwaway. It is a verdict. You do not hand that verdict to someone you are feuding with. LeBron also placed Wembanyama inside a lineage, which is its own form of respect. The Spurs have a history of generational big men, and LeBron framed Wembanyama as the next link in a chain that runs through some of the most respected names the franchise has produced.
David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and now Wemby. Guys who just, they have this
Dead serious.
They have this dead serious mentality.
That phrase, dead serious mentality, is the thread connecting everything. It explains why Wembanyama played the All-Star game like a Game 7. It explains why LeBron respects him. And it explains why the curse word clip from Los Angeles was never an insult. LeBron was reacting to exactly the trait he praises here. The refusal to take a possession off, and that trait happens to be the same one that got LeBron scored on. There is one more piece, and it is the most revealing, because it touches the part of this story that LeBron cannot control: time. On the podcast, the conversation turned to the idea of facing Wembanyama down the line, and LeBron offered a line that has been clipped almost as much as the All-Star moment, a line about being glad he will not be around for the prime version of this player.
I'm glad I can watch and do this and figure out what time my tea time is tomorrow.
Right.
Read it back. A man joking that by the time Wembanyama reaches his peak, LeBron will be retired and scheduling tea times. That is not the language of a rival. That is the language of someone handing something off. It is relief wrapped in a joke, and underneath the joke is an admission that the player across from him represents a future he will be watching from a golf course instead of a defensive stance. Every piece of this points the same direction: the vocabulary, the technical breakdowns, the lineage, the tea time joke. When LeBron has time to say what he means, he says Wembanyama is unprecedented, serious, and the next in line. There is no hidden contempt waiting underneath the praise. But a relationship has two sides, and so far we have only heard one of them. To know whether this is a genuine mutual respect or a one-way stream of compliments from a veteran being gracious, we need to turn the microphone around and hear how the younger man talks about the older one. How Wembanyama talks about the man he studied. A rivalry needs two people willing to fight it. We have heard LeBron, and his side sounds like admiration. So the real test of whether anything got ugly comes down to Victor Wembanyama, the player who supposedly got confronted, the one who would have every reason to push back if he felt disrespected. And when you listen to him, there is no push. There is the opposite. Start with the obvious point that gets lost in the noise. Wembanyama grew up studying LeBron James. He is part of a generation of players whose entire understanding of what a basketball career could be was shaped by watching this one man. So when these two finally shared a floor, the dynamic was never really a confrontation between equals with a grudge. It was a young player meeting the standard he had measured himself against his whole life. When Wembanyama is asked about LeBron, the first thing he reaches for is not LeBron's scoring or his athleticism. It is his mind. During All-Star media availability, he was asked what he had learned from the way LeBron had carried himself and represented the league for so long, and his answer went straight to intelligence.
What have you learned from him, and what do you want to carry forward in terms of just how he has represented the NBA for so long?
That is the question put to him, a question about legacy and how to carry a league, and Wembanyama did not deflect it or give the bored answer a player gives when he is not interested. He engaged with it directly.
I actually think LeBron has some, he's very intelligent.
Very intelligent. Of all the things Wembanyama could praise about the most physically dominant force the sport has known for 20 years, he chose the mind that tells you what he is actually paying attention to. He is not studying LeBron to beat him in a one-on-one. He is studying how LeBron has navigated 2 decades of being the most scrutinized athlete on the planet, how he has managed his public life, how he has led, and how he has avoided the mistakes that sink most careers long before age does. Wembanyama treats LeBron as a model for the part of the job that has nothing to do with basketball, the part about being the face of something larger than yourself. And that detail connects to something happening in real time around Wembanyama, because the league has very clearly begun positioning him to inherit exactly that role. Coverage of the 2026 All-Star Game did not describe him as a great young player. It described him as the heir, the one taking the mantle from LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry as a guardian of the game. The same article noted how often Wembanyama uses language that recognizes he is part of something bigger than himself, that as enormous as he sees himself as one piece of a larger puzzle. That is the mentality of someone preparing to carry a league, not someone nursing a beef with the man he is taking it from. The handoff that LeBron joked about with his tea time line is the same handoff Wembanyama is quietly preparing for by studying how the job was done before him. There is a harder edge to Wembanyama, and it is worth being honest about because it is real and it does occasionally surface. This is a player who has shown he will challenge authority when he believes something is wrong. Later in the 2026 season, during a playoff run, his microphone cut out at a press conference at the exact moment he began criticizing the league over its handling of his concussion protocol, an incident that sparked real backlash and real questions about transparency. So the idea that Wembanyama is incapable of conflict is false. He has fire. He has shown he will use his voice. But notice where that fire points. It points at the league's processes, at a system he felt failed him on a health issue. It does not point at LeBron James. In every setting where the subject is LeBron, Wembanyama's tone shifts to something closer to a student talking about a teacher. The same young man who will stare down the NBA DNA over a concussion protocol speaks about LeBron with patience and admiration. That contrast is the whole point. He is not soft. He simply does not have a problem with LeBron. And a man who is willing to fight when he feels wronged would not stay quiet if he felt the older star had disrespected him. So we now have both sides of the microphone, and they say the same thing. LeBron calls Wembanyama unprecedented. Wembanyama calls LeBron a model worth studying. One man jokes about handing off the league. The other studies how to carry it. There is no second person willing to fight this rivalry, which means there may not be a rivalry to fight, which brings us finally to the question the title has been holding over this entire video. We have walked through the first night, the viral clip, LeBron's real words, and Wembanyama's real words. It is time to put all of it together and answer plainly whether LeBron James confronted Victor Wembanyama and things got ugly. Did things actually get ugly? Here is where we land after everything we have walked through, and it is worth saying directly now because we have earned the right to say it. The story of LeBron James confronting Victor Wembanyama and things getting ugly does not survive contact with the actual footage. The confrontation that the title promises is not there. What is there is one of the most respectful relationships between a departing legend and an arriving one that the sport has produced in years. Walk it back through the evidence. The first matchup, the night this whole thing supposedly began, ended with a viral LeBron step back and a rookie who said he was just out there trying to win. No incident, no insult. Across all 5 of their regular season meetings, with LeBron holding a 3-2 edge, there was contact and intensity, but never a flagrant foul, never an ejection, never the kind of moment that earns the word ugly. The physical battles were the ordinary friction of 2 great players guarding each other, the kind the sport is supposed to produce. The clip that launched 1,000 thumbnails, the censored line LeBron muttered at the 2026 All-Star Game, was the closest thing to drama in the entire story, and even that collapses the moment you put it back in context. It came in a reimagined All-Star tournament format that finally got players to compete against a Wembanyama who was scoring 33 and playing an exhibition like a playoff game. LeBron's frustration was the frustration of a man getting beaten, and his words were the salty admiration of a veteran who could not stop what was happening. The announcers laughed. Nobody on the floor flinched. There was no post-game tension. It was banter, the standard alpha trash talk of a league that runs on it, amplified into a feud by a microphone that caught what was never meant to be a headline. And then there's the mountain of evidence pointing the other way, which is the part the thumbnails never show you, on his own podcast, with all the time in the world to say what he really thinks. LeBron called Wembanyama an alien, broke down his body control as something the game has never seen before, placed him in the lineage of Robinson and Duncan, and joked that he was glad he would be scheduling tea times by the time Wembanyama reached his prime. That is not the language of a man in a confrontation. That is a man holding a door open, and Wembanyama, for his part, talks about LeBron the way a student talks about the teacher who set the standard, praising his intelligence, studying how he carried a league, preparing to carry it himself. What the footage does is take a genuine, layered, fascinating story and flatten it into a fistfight that never happened. Because the real story is actually more interesting than the fake one. The real drama here is not between LeBron and Wembanyama at all. It is internal. It is LeBron at 41 in his 23rd season, confronting the one opponent he has never beaten, which is time, and choosing to meet the player who represents his own ending with grace instead of resentment. And it is Wembanyama, 22, carrying the weight of being declared the future before he has fully arrived, channeling that pressure into a seriousness so intense he plays an all-star game like his life depends on it. Those are the 2 real conflicts, and neither of them is a confrontation between the 2 men. They are each fighting something inside themselves, and they happen to admire each other while they do it. So when the internet hands you a few seconds of a mic'd up curse word and tells you a legend confronted a phenom and things got ugly, the honest answer is that the clip is real, but the story attached to it is not. There was no ugliness. There was a salty joke in a competitive exhibition, sitting on top of years of mutual respect, so consistent it almost makes the sensational version embarrassing by comparison. LeBron did not confront Wembanyama. He blessed him, repeatedly on the record, in his own words. And Wembanyama did not fire back, because there was nothing to fire back at. He just kept studying, kept competing, and kept getting ready to take the league. LeBron is preparing to leave behind. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.